aloha mai kako e nā hoa makamaka mai ka la hiki a ka la kau, velina nui me ke aloha. Mahalo nui no ke a koko ana o kako no ka pono o ka la hui, no ka pono o ka aina, a no ka pono o ka wai a no hoi. Aloha everyone, welcome to today's May 5th, 2025 budget workshop of the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. Before beginning today's meeting, I'd like to state that our board is dedicated to providing safe, dependable, and affordable water now and into the future. At this time, we'd like to share a brief recording with reminders on public participation, as well as virtual meeting regulations for board members as required by law.
Materials for this meeting under HRS Section 92-7.5 are accessible at boardofwatersupply.com/board meetings. The public may attend this meeting in person at the BWS Public Service Building, located at 630 South Beretania Street. The public may also view a live stream of today's meeting on our website at boardofwatersupply.com/live. We have been accepting written or oral testimony for today's meeting. Instructions and an online submittal form are available at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. The deadline to submit advanced written testimony has passed. Testimony received by noon today have been distributed to the board members. We will continue to accept written testimony today through our online form. Oral testimony in person or remotely will be accepted during today's meeting. To facilitate as much in-person and remote testimony as reasonably possible during the time allotted, pre-registration and submittal of a written version of testimony at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony is strongly encouraged. To testify in person, please register using our online form or come to the Public Service Building at 630 South Beretania Street. We have a representative in the lobby to provide intake and further instructions. To request to testify remotely, please complete the online form at boardofwatersupply.com/testimony. Requesters will receive an email containing links and instructions to join the Zoom session. Testifiers will have 2 minutes to state their position. A timekeeper will alert testifiers when there is 1 minute remaining. Once the 2 minutes are up, please summarize to allow time for questions from the board. Then, make room for the next testifier. Board members attending any board meeting remotely must be visible to the public to be considered present and meet quorum guidelines. Board members participating remotely must also disclose their location and anyone present at their location during roll call. Meeting participants who are calling or video conferencing in, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. If you have a question, comment, or wish to enter or second a motion on an action item, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself before continuing to speak. If you encounter technical issues during today's meeting, please use the Zoom chat to send a direct message to our support team. Their names are listed in the message to all participants. To open the chat window, please click on the text bubble icon on the Zoom toolbar.
All right, thank you. Let's take a moment to take a roll call of the board members. When I call your name, please say aye, and if attending remotely, make the appropriate disclosures. Vice Chair Jonathan Kaneshiro.
Hi, sorry I couldn't be there today, but I'm in my office alone with my door closed.
Thank you. Aloha. Board Member Brian Andaya.
I'm at home in a room by myself.
Aloha, Brian. Thank you. Board Member Gina Albano.
I'm in my private office alone.
Aloha. Board Member Edwin Sniffen.
Hi, in my office alone.
Aloha. In the room with me today is Board Member Lance Wilhelm.
Yo.
Aloha. And I believe Board Member Pu'u is just going to be a few minutes late. Joy and Kim, just please let us know when she's on and I'll have her make the appropriate disclosure. Also in the room with us today are Deputy Manager Erwin Kawata.
Here.
Aloha. Board Secretary Joy Cruz Achu.
Here.
Aloha. Manager Secretary Kim Kwai. And Information Specialist Wayne Maria. Aloha. Also joining us by Zoom are Jeff Lau and Jessica Wong, both from the City and County Corporation Council Department. We have one item for information today. It is the workshop meeting on proposed fiscal year 2025-2026 operating and capital improvement program budget. Chair recognizes Raylin Nakabayashi and Patrick Chun. Aloha.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I'm Raylan Nakabayashi. I head the Executive Support Office. I'm going to dive into our FY26 or fiscal year 26 operating budget and capital improvement program budgets. Okay, to start, our fiscal year 26 budgets are proposed at $283,312,488 on the operating side, which is a $10.7 million or 3.9% increase over the prior fiscal year 25. Our capital improvement program budget is being proposed at $283,327,500, which is a 33 million or 10.4% decrease over the prior year. Presented here are fiscal years 22 through 26, both operating and CIP. Operating budgets are in the yellow columns to the right. CIP budgets are the navy or blue columns to the left. So as you can see, if we're just focusing in on those yellow lines, operating budgets have consistently grown due to increases in operating costs. Our increase in fiscal year 26 is primarily due to increases in material supplies and services, fixed charges, and on the CIP side, these cost increases are driven by increased costs for projects as a result of inflation, supply chain disruptions, and tariffs. Further in the presentation, we'll cover increases in each major cost category. The CIP budgets have steadily increased over time as we continually work to invest in repairing, replacing, and investing in our existing infrastructure, and as we contend with Red Hill. In fiscal year 26, we're working on executing and finishing our existing projects. So our capital improvement program budget is slightly decreased as compared to fiscal year 25. Patrick, later in the presentation, will go over the details within the CIP. So the proposed operating budget is based on total operating fund resources of $415 million. That's the bolded total resource line. We have been working diligently to maintain safe and reliable service in the face of increased inflationary pressures and the Red Hill crisis. And we're working on building our carryover balance, that's that ending balance at the bottom, to ensure that we have enough funds to execute our mission. And carryover, when we mention that, is simply the unbudgeted, unreserved cash amount remaining at the end of each fiscal year. And with the board's support, in November of 2023, we adopted rate increases, which became effective in February of 2024. And while these rate increases were much needed, as you may recall, to avoid rate shock, we deliberately limited the rate increases to no more than 10% in each fiscal year, understanding, though, that this would mean a gradual rebuilding of our diminished fund balance. The increase to be implemented at the start of fiscal year 26 is 9.5%, and the FY26 budget reflects increases in expenditures, things that we've all faced, and a strategic use of our operating fund balance at a time when borrowing is more expensive. The result being here, a projected fund balance or ending fund balance or carryover of $52.6 million. Okay, so this slide illustrates our total resources versus our total expenditures, with our resources being the column to the left, made up of the blue, green, and sometimes orange. The blue is our revenues to be earned. The green is that carryover fund balance, and then orange in the two actual years, 23 and 24, any prior year lapses and adjustments. So as was noted, we are working to rebuild or grow that green balance, but we do intend to continue putting our operating fund balance to work and to ensure continued operations and investment into our water system at a time when borrowing is more expensive. So just a note, in the posted materials for this slide, I had a little typo. These are how we're doing against our board adopted financial policies for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024. So as you see it on screen is correct. I think the posted materials had 23. So apologies for that. But one of the financial policies is our debt service coverage ratio. At the close of fiscal year 24, we were at 3.98 times on senior debt and 2.91 times all in. And our, target ratio is 1.6 times debt service coverage. And another board financial policy is our net working capital, or that carryover balance that we're talking about on an earlier slide. Our target is 180 days with never having left less than 60 days. So at the close of fiscal year 24, we were at 201 days. This is just how our debt service coverage ratio is doing over time or projected to do over time with our 6-year CIP plans. And the debt service coverage ratio is simply the cash flow available to pay our current debt obligations. And it's a way that we measure our ability to repay our existing loans and take on new financing. It's just net operating income divided by debt service. Our target, as you saw on the prior slide, is 1.6 times debt service coverage, but our indenture requirement, our commitment to our bondholders is 1.2 times coverage. So we're doing pretty good in this financial measure. Another way to measure our financial strength, our financial discipline policies is our bond rating. Our bond rating has been historically high, and we received AAA stable ratings in February of 2024. We did not seek an updated or new rating in 2025 because we didn't issue new bonds in 25, but S&P did affirm our bond rating on January 30th of this year, and Fitch also reconfirmed their AAA rating with a review in December of 2024. So now we can go over our operating budget. So our operating fund expenditures in fiscal year 26 are proposed at $362.4 million. And that's made up of $98 million for material supplies and services, $79.1 million of operating funds used to fund capital improvement projects, $75.4 million for fixed charges, $62.1 million for personnel services, $42.2 million for debt service, and $5.7 million for equipment. So how does that stack up, I guess, year over year? So this slide presents our actual operating fund expenditures from fiscal years 22, 23, and 24. And it also presents to you the adopted budgets of FY25 and the proposed budget of FY26. So the gray top block that I wanted to point out was just to note that as we continue to grow our capital improvement program, we will continue the mix of financing between selling bonds and using the operating fund where necessary. And right now, as interest rates to borrow continue to go up, or they're higher than they have been in prior years, we've made a conscious decision to use more operating funds and alternative financing sources, such as the SRF program and the WIFIA program, to ensure that continued growth on the capital improvement side while balancing these costs to our ratepayers. So if we remove that gray part of the chart, though, we just look at true operating budget costs year over year. To the left, you've got FY25. That's the adopted budget, and then comparing that to FY26 on the right. So there's approximately $10.7 million more dollars budgeted, or 3.9% more budgeted in FY26 than there was in FY25. And this is primarily due to a $9.7 million increase in materials, supplies, and services. This is specifically in the object categories, other contractual services and professional services. So now I'll cover each of those cost categories in further detail. Okay, so starting with the personnel costs or salaries costs of the Board of Water Supply, there is no net increase in full-time equivalent or FTE employees being proposed. The department staffing level remains below the authorized 741 FTEs. There is a $2.1 million decrease in salary costs, or 3.3% from the budget in FY25. This is primarily due to a reduction in the amount of salaries money that we're budgeting for temporary hazard pay related to the COVID-19 pandemic. We budgeted $7 million in fiscal year 25, and we've reduced that amount to $3.5 million in fiscal year 26. That is due to the fact that we believe the UPW, or about half of our workforce is UPW, the other half is HGA. We believe the UPW obligations will be settled in fiscal year 25, and we just need to move forward in fiscal year 26 to take care of the HGA workforce. And also, the board continues its HR initiatives to optimize and expand our capacity through reorgs and leveraging of technology. We're continuing our working on optimizing or increasing our recruitment and advertising of all of our positions through additional venues. And the city or the Mayor Blangiardi's goal is to fill as many civil service positions as quickly as possible. So we're doing everything that we can as well on this side of the Board of Water Supply to do the same. As some of you may recall from Michelle's presentation last month in April, approximately 36.7% of our workforce is eligible for retirement within the next 10 years. And we do understand the seriousness of that number, compounded with the fact that we have existing vacancies. So that number will just get larger, or the amount of vacant positions will just get larger. To reach a wider audience with our recruitment, BWS continues to invest time and resources into reaching these candidates. We engage college students with internship opportunities and leverage all modes of media to promote these recruitments. We're constantly on the pursuit of people who are in search of a fulfilling career, providing one of the most critical and essential needs of our community. Highlighted on this slide are graphics from our summer watership program and some of the participants from last year. This program aims to engage college students by introducing them to careers at the Board of Water Supply. Also, our FY26 budget includes $1 million intended for succession planning to ensure institutional knowledge is passed down before staff retire. Moving into the biggest cost category, which is materials, supplies, and services. This is where our budget saw the largest increase, or $9.7 million, or 11%. And specifically, this is in our professional services category and other contractual services. So a couple of projects that are being funded in this area. There's funds for source water protection projects in both the Office of the Manager, Chief Engineer, and Water Resources. There's funding for Red Hill Groundwater Study and Geotechnical Services. That's in my office in ESO. We've got a lead service line inventory and water testing costs, which are in Water Quality Division. The previously mentioned succession planning and Human Resource Office. In fixed charges, there's an increase for arbitrage costs and the other small increases in expenditures such as soil testing and IT services. And our smallest cost category is equipment. So this budget is up 191,000, or I'm sorry, down $191,000 or 3.3% decrease. And this is essentially just aligns with the replacement of fleet vehicles on our predetermined replacement schedule. And the last cost category is debt service. So the debt service category had also saw a slight decrease of 0.6% or $262,000 as no new debt was issued in fiscal year 25. Another cost category is fixed charges. That saw a $3.6 million increase or 5% increase. This is primarily due to increases in the cost for the employee retirement system benefits and employee health benefits of $1.2 million. Okay, moving into the revenue side of our budget. Total revenues are projected to increase by about 33.8 million or 11.3% in fiscal year 26 compared to 25. And the majority of our revenue is earned from metered water revenues, which are projected to increase by about $27 million. And that's primarily due to the rate increases. One will become effective on July 1st, 2025. The other metered water that we bill for is recycled water, and that's projected to remain flat. Even with the rate increases, there's a decreased usage trend that's kind of offsetting that. So here are how the revenue projections stack up year over year. FY24 actuals, 25 budget, and the 26 proposed. So another place where you see a major percent change, at least in revenues, is in other revenues, and specifically that's interest income, which is projected to go up by about $8 million. And it's offset again in other revenues by a small decrease of $1.2 million. And that's due to our ocean cooling contract, which is finishing up in September of 2025. So visually, this is how the revenues stack up year over year. Actuals for 23, budget versus actual for 23, 24, and then 25 and 26 are budgeted amounts. So as you can see, the bulk of our revenue is that blue part, which is metered sales of potable, non-potable, and recycled water. And as the board knows too, the amount of water demand is greatly affected by the usage patterns and weather. So it does kind of go up and down, but we do forecast our revenues based on those historical patterns and use trends. And we've also layered in the rate increases that will become effective in fiscal year 26. While operating fund revenues are increasing by 11.3% year over year, operating expenditures are only going to increase by about 3.9%. And before I let Pat dive into the CIP, I just wanted to just cover in general that our FY26 CIP budget does reflect our continuing and growing need to invest in our infrastructure. And while the CIP is growing, though, we remain conscious of the cost of that program to our ratepayers, and we're making significant efforts to diversify our funding strategies and our funding streams. So about 25% of our capital improvement program budget is funded through a low interest loan program, the state revolving fund, which may and hopefully does include some loan forgiveness, reducing the overall cost of these projects to our ratepayers. We also continue to seek outside funding through grants, which would allow us to pursue projects at no cost to our ratepayers. All-in bond interest, just to compare the SRF program to selling or debt financing things, all-in bond interest for our bond sales in 2024 was at 4.12%. The SRF program is between 2 to 3% and has a longer repayment period. The WIFIA rates, we're also looking at a Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, or WIFIA loan. Those will be determined once we execute on the loan and make the first draw of funds. But the WIFIA program is always going to be less than the federal interest rate, so it'll be a below market interest rate loan. And same with the SRF program. It does offer a longer repayment period and more flexible terms, so you can defer repaying on your WIFIA loans until your project is done for a period of time. So from here, I will hand the presentation over to Pat to cover the capital improvement program budget.
Thank you, Ray. Good afternoon, Chair Nalalehu
Hello.
and board members. I'm Patrick Chun, and I'm the acting program administrator for Capital Projects Division. The Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, ensures that BWS will be able to achieve BWS's vision and mission: water for life, safe, dependable, and affordable water now and into the future. The program includes projects from various divisions within BWS, including Capital Projects Division. The CIP not only supports BWS's vision and mission, but it also aligned with BWS's Water Master Plan, Strategic Plan, BWS's goals and objectives, and the 6-year Capital Improvement Program. The CIP carefully balances the needs of the system in providing safe, reliable water with cost-effective management of assets and funding. The CIP is comprised of 3 project categories: research and development, renewal and replacement, and capacity expansion. I will review some of the projects in each category. This map shows the approximate location of where the new design and construction projects for FY 2026 are located. Red indicates design projects and blue indicates construction projects. For category 1, research and development, we have budgeted $28.5 million. On this slide, I have highlighted projects in this category. One of these projects involved construction of up to 5 monitoring wells to be used as sentinel wells, allowing BWS to detect the presence of an underground contaminant plume from Red Hill. The photo is of a typical monitoring well drilling rig. Category 2 is for renewal and replacement of various facilities and infrastructure with a budget of $103.4 million. Like the previous slide, I have not listed all the projects, just some of the significant ones. I'll provide some information on 2 of these projects. We will bid out a construction project at Wilder Wells to replace the motor control center, including installation of new electronic motor starters, known as soft starters, that reduce strain on the mechanical and electrical equipment and allows better control of pump operations. The project also includes the control building interior and exterior lighting replacement, replacement of general use power receptacles, replacement of discharge control valves for all 4 pumps, modifications to the dump line drain box to eliminate an overflow situation, and various other improvements. $7 million is included in the budget for this project. On the design side, one of our projects will be for the relocation of Nuuanu Booster Number 2. The scope involves replacing the existing Nuuanu Booster 2 Station Number 2 with a new booster station at a nearby site. The project will include 3 booster pumps with 12-inch suction and discharge mains, an emergency generator connection cabinet, and all mechanical and electrical equipment typical of a BWS booster station. $1 million is budgeted for this design project. The photo on the left is the existing Wilder Wells MCC to be replaced. The photo on the right is the existing Nuuanu Booster Number 2 to be replaced by a new booster station, which will start design in FY26. Category 3 is for capacity expansion, which has a budget of $92 million. I have listed a few of the more significant construction and design projects that will be awarded in FY26. One of the construction projects involve a new GAC facility in a parcel recently acquired from Castle and Cook, adjacent to the Mililani Wells 2 property. The project includes 4 new GAC vessels, a backwash tank system, including pump and filter setup, a chlorination system, and associated piping. $10 million is budgeted for this project. From the P&E projects listed, we will be starting the design for the Red Hill Contamination Response Production Well at the Newtown 550 Reservoir site for $450,000. The photo is of a pair of GAC vessels that are typically found at our GAC facilities. These are from our Mililani Wells 3 site. Now I'm going to turn the presentation back to Ray, who will continue with the FY26 budget summary.
So this chart here is just presenting, or this matrix here is presenting to you those 3 project categories that Pat talked about on the left side: research and development, renewal and replacement, and capacity expansion. Further complicated though by all of those diverse funding sources that we talked about. So we are funding the CIP budget with operating funds. As we mentioned in the beginning, that's just our cash rate revenue. And we intend to use that balance while we have it to help, I guess, defer some borrowing costs by spending cash now. And then in yellow, all the yellow columns are those diversified fund sources that come from outside of the BWS. So the state revolving fund program, state revolving loan fund program, and the WIFIA program are low interest loan programs. The SRF one with the State Department of Health, and WIFIA directly with the EPA. There's also the extramural fund, which is where we put for projects and funds for outside funding sources by agreement. So essentially grants or MOAs or MOUs, where the funding is tied to a specific project. We also have our special expendable fund, which is where we put the revenues from our water system facilities charge, and the only projects that can be funded from that fund are expansion projects. And then we've got the improvement fund, which is essentially just our issuance of bonds to finance capital improvement projects. Another highlight of the FY26 capital improvement program budget, as we are, when we come to the board in May and when we do the public hearing on the budget at the end of this month, there is a new "be it further resolved" paragraph in the budget resolution that would allow the use of non-operating fund capital improvement program, everything budgeted that is not the operating fund, to be available to us for encumbrance and expenditure for 24 months rather than the usual 12. So this change would allow us to use those funds for up to 24 months, which is, 1, aligned with how the city does their CIP budget, and 2, would provide us the flexibility and time to execute our projects. Things are taking longer right now to complete and to award projects. There's some increased permitting and regulations that we're contending with. The 24 months would allow us to delay solicitation, award, and execution of contracts till we have those things in place, permits, approvals from the regulators. Otherwise, the option is to, if we push forward and we just award the contract for the sake of encumbering it in that fiscal year, we may be delaying our contractors' ability to proceed when the permits and approvals are not in place. which exposes the board to delayed claims for damages with our contractors. The other thing a 24-month CIP would help us do, it allows us to better use those diversified funding sources that we talked about, like the SRF program, the WIFIA program, and grants. Using federal funds is the best thing, I think, for our ratepayers at the end of the day, because it helps keep the cost of these projects down. But it does require a lot more work on the front end or the design time and on the design teams, because they need to ensure that the projects, when they hit construction, will be federally compliant. Some of the big things that they have to work on the design side before we can take them into construction are ensuring these projects will be Buy America, Build America compliant, American Iron and Steel compliant. So it's a lot more work on the front end. There are also other National Historic Preservation and EA requirements that are required before you can start any of the ground disturbing work in construction. And those approvals take time to get. And if we're still waiting on them, this 24-month period will allow us to execute and award the contracts only after those are in place. Second to the last slide, sorry. So this slide is just summarizing both budgets together now, both operating and CIP across the various sources of funds. So the operating budget, again, 283.3 million, funded solely with our rate revenue, our operating funds. The capital improvement program budget at 283.3 million as well, but funded across the various fund sources. And in closing, our FY26 budgets do remain focused on our core vision, our Kavaiola, and providing our customers safe, dependable, and affordable water. To provide safe water, we continue to comply with all drinking water regulations, including 2 new major rule changes with PFAS and the lead and copper. On top of our mandatory compliance, we're working to ensure the Red Hill crisis does not impact our customers through continued testing and the development of monitoring wells to characterize any contamination within the aquifer. To ensure dependable water, we're continuing the work we started on our water master plan update. That project was funded in FY25, continues through FY26, and this will help guide the implementation of high priority projects. And finally, to ensure affordable water, we'll continue our strong financial management practices and exercise fiscal prudence. We're also continuing to seek sources of funding from both the federal and state government where available. That is it for the budget workshop, but Pat and I and the rest of the division heads here are available for any questions.
Members, any questions?
I have a few.
Go ahead. Hello, Brian.
Yeah. So, I had a question regarding, employee development and employee opportunities for employees to attend conferences and things like that. Is that has that been budgeted back in, or are we still gonna kind of keep the same policy of foregoing?
We do have budgets for travel to conferences, and we're, I guess, slowly bringing that back. It still requires, from a policy side, I guess, approval from the manager's office to go, but the funds are there.
I see. Okay, and then other question is, a few years back, I know that, kind of, especially when the whole Red Hill crisis was occurring, departments were asked to cut by, I forget what percentage, 5-10%. Have those been restored, or are we still keeping with that?
Yeah, no, those cuts were specific to those couple of COVID years, and then we had a year or two. I think this did line up with the COVID years too, where electricity got really, really expensive, far more than I think we could have projected and forecasted. So we did ask all of our division heads to implement between 5 and 10% cutbacks or holdbacks. Those were exclusive to those fiscal years, though, and then we've continued to balance our budgets out going forward. Until we got our rate increases, there was also a lot of having to essentially keep the budget flat which in dollars doesn't look like a cut, but how that feels operationally when cost is escalating, but you can't have more resources, felt like cuts. All of that since we've implemented the rate increases, and we're doing the best we can to stick on the financial kind of outlay that we worked on for the rate increases and align our operating budgets to the revenues that we're anticipating to come in. Those, thankfully, we're past those years, I guess. It's not a full open throttle on spending, but we are much better off now that the rate increases are in place.
Well, that's great to hear. And I'm also pleased to hear that we have set aside some money for succession planning. And then, sorry, I got a couple more. I don't want to take all the questions, but
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
other question is, do we have in the budget, money for exploring treatment of, the water in case we do find, whether it's PFAS or, jet fuel or whatever it is. There are various treatment technologies now. Is that something that we've got planned?
Board member, yes, we do have a project to take a look at PFAS treatment. It is ongoing, has already started. Yes.
Oh, great to hear.
Sorry, I'm trying to bring up it's in there is a line in the capital improvement program budget. Sorry, I was trying to bring up the budget book. But under, I think it's in the renewal and replacement section. Yeah, it's line number 29. We're budgeting $5 million annually going forward now for temporary drinking water treatment systems. And that is to help us deal with kind of the uncertainty of where the PFAS is, in what quantities, and what are we going to do now today as that rule progresses. That FY27 has some dates, and then 29. By 29, you've got to treat that water or you turn the sources off. But in the meantime, the temporary treatment or temporary drinking water treatment system money will help us implement. We've got Mark and Barry here to explain the technical side of it. In the meantime, though, as we work to design and construct permanent treatment facilities.
Great. And last question is, I know you mentioned about, delays if, to switch to the 24-month period as opposed to the current 12-month. And I certainly understand and I support that. Can you explain though again how staying at the 12-month system opens the board up to claims from contractors for delays?
Sure. So when we advertise or solicit our construction projects and then proceed with award, the 12 months that we have now is the only amount of time that it's available to us to do that. It's programmed in the for example, FY25. We've had from July of last year to June of this year, and we've got to get those projects solicited. We got to get bids in, and we got to award by June. Otherwise, that money disappears. That sometimes forces us to go through that process, award that contract, give it to the contractor, but we tell them we're going to delay the notice to proceed or the construction. They can do no ground disturbing, no nothing for at least 6 months because we still don't have the permits that allow us to actually do any of that. Then we're not in control of when those permits come through, right? So that's our best guess. So if I award something this June and I say I forecast a notice to proceed 180 days from now, or maybe 200 days from now, one, that's a little bit of uncertainty for contractor side. They're going to be putting in bids and targeting workforce and labor needs for 200 days out. I think that's hard. So you may not see a lot of bid competition in this time frame, or just not possible. So they will not bid at all. Then we get to 200 days from now and I still don't have those permits. 200 days past June, we still don't have the permits. So we tell contractor again, we got to wait longer. You still can't start the construction project. There can be no ground disturbing work. You can't mobilize. You can't do anything. That is the exposure part though, now that, because we said when we awarded the contract, we would give you notice to proceed within 200 days We did not. Now contractor can actually come back to the board and say, well, you know, this is not what was in our original contract. You said we were going to be able to start, and now we cannot start. So we are on the hook to compensate them for those delays or damages. So maybe they did start mobilizing, maybe they did start, or they will wait on that. They'll wait another 100 days. But in the meantime, costs have escalated and they no longer have to hold that price or honor that price that they gave us 300 days ago when we awarded them the contract. So
Okay.
hopefully, yeah, the plan is we will not take it out to solicit to bid until we've got those permits in hand and we can be more certain about when they're allowed to construct, rather than put the contract out when we're not entirely sure when the construction can start.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I know in the past there were some complaints and, but good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just to follow up on Brian's question, does that mean that one will probably see an initial lag in some of these going out if we submit to the 2-year?
I think so, yes. So we do a quarterly report to you folks to show you our execution rate. And you always see everything happening in the fourth, right? Because we gotta push it out or we're just gonna lapse the money. I think you'll see, we'll still push out the projects once we've got everything lined up. But you'll see if we don't have the permits, rather than we lapse the money, I come back to you for a budget amendment, I try to slide it into the next year, we will just take that out in the next 3 months, 6 months, however long it takes us. So you're probably gonna, we've been cautioned though by manager that we are not always just trying to extend that, what do you call it, like a hockey stick, flat, flat, flat spike.
Mhm.
So we want to bid projects when they're ready, whether that be like the second quarter of the next year, the first quarter of the next year. So Pat can talk to that too. Our commitment is to get them out. We're just not wanting to get them out if we don't have the permits.
I think that would be my follow-up as well. You know, we've always had that. I mean, I moved from the contractor side, right? And I know when it happens, bids come out at one time. And the only thing I fear about this is now we'll have the hockey stick, but it'll be 2 years worth, which would be way
It'll be just really longer.
really long stick than at the last quarter of the second biennium. Then it's really steep. And if you try to do 2 years worth of work in that same 2-week period, way worse, like way worse. So
We're going to do our best to not let that happen.
I think maybe it's our Kuleana, I just feel like monitor on a more regular basis, right? So hopefully you see less. I mean, in theory, over time, you'll have more ability to get more work out and off quarters, right?
Yeah, it gives, I guess, the projects that need more time, that time, but it's not, we've been cautioned, Pat and I, many times by like Ernie and Erwin too, it's not just wait though on everything. What you have, get it out still. Like, and then things that have to wait will wait. But yeah, we're trying not to have that really long hockey stick. And then also what we understand too is like, this is okay right now. We put it in the FY26 budget resolution, but Ernie is of the same mind as you folks, is that this was proposed from the staff level, right? We're like, we think we need this time because we're seeing delay, damage, change orders. I'm coming to the board almost every single year to ask you guys to amend the budget because we couldn't get something out. So we think this is going to be helpful. Staff proposed it. He's allowing it to go in, but this is not something that has to live in the budget resolution forever, right? If he's not seeing us execute and there's no good reasons for us not executing, next year, the year after, this may go back to 12 months. So it is a control thing. We can strike that, be it further resolved paragraph. We could strike it this year. We could strike it next year. It never was there before. Staff was making the recommendation that we do think in this time where permits are taking a lot longer to obtain too. And then we think that there's a lot of bid uncertainty too, especially when we put out in the solicitations like that we're going to hold notice to proceed for potentially hundreds of days, that we think it would be better if we were able to just hold bidding till we had those in place.
Attorney has also initiated, regular meetings with those agencies that we have to get those permit approvals and authorizations so that we keep track of all the different projects, where they are in the queue, so that we can make sure that it moves along as best as possible.
Contractor having to hold prices for 100+ days is not ideal either, right? Because they're gonna charge you for that escalation, and they can't hold the price for the vendor.
And I think right now in the economy too, like we would see if we're doing that and we're telling people notice to proceed will be maybe issued within the first 200 days after. I think what you're going to see is people will likely not want to bid our stuff because that's just too much uncertainty. Then that doesn't serve us or our ratepayers well either when there's a lack of competition on our project. So we do hope, and we will work really hard to keep executing, but we really wanted to use this as a tool right now with what we're facing. Like everyone said, we are trying to work with those regulating agencies or those permit issuing agencies, meet with them regularly. We're exploring the name of programmatic agreements. I think, sorry, someone can correct me if I'm, but a programmatic agreement to try to maybe delegate or share in some of that responsibility. So if we can get a programmatic agreement with some of these agencies, we could move these permits out quicker or these approvals out quicker. So attack it from all angles, hopefully, and hope to still show you folks like solid execution though.
Are we still meeting with GCA regularly?
Yes, we are.
Pat says yes. Quarterly?
Monthly.
Oh, monthly.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry, just a couple. Since I get to claim new guy status, right? Never seen it before. So, on your CIP budget, every organization does a little bit different, but you have your CIP costs. Are the costs that are in there like project costs, or is that 1 year's worth of spend?
This is 1 year's worth of spending. So this is what we anticipate on the, sorry, I'll try.
I was looking like specifically at like the desal plan, right? You made a $76 million spend in a fiscal year, which is a fairly healthy spend rate in 1 12-month period of time.
So that is an interesting, it's slightly different. Sorry, let me do the share screen thing again.
But I just wanted Barry to do something because I know he's just sitting on the side, so.
Oh. Yes, so this project was always intended to be funded over multiple years. Initial award was $149 million for the desalination plant, and we were going to phase funding in as needed and as it became available. Because that 149 million, if we were to encumber it all in 1 year, as you can see the size of our CIP, that's 50% of our CIP just in one project. So it was always intended to be funded over time. The funding that you see this year, though, is specific to what we believe will have secured. Sorry, I'm gonna jump to the CIP page. You'll see Kalailoa if you look at our past 3 budget books at the desal facility. This year, we just were awarded, thank you to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, that $19 million grant. At the time, we weren't sure when those grant agreements would come through. So you'll see it in both fiscal year 25 and 26, because until we got that awarded grant agreement, we couldn't encumber that money into the contract. And then we've also got that WIFIA loan that is still pending. So it's been budgeted in 25, budgeted in 26 again, because until we actually get those financial agreements signed, we can't encumber the money. The actual cash flow spend on this project, I don't know if Ari wants to talk about that, but it's defined through the design, build, operate, maintain period. Oh.
I agree.
Yeah, and then, sorry, we're,
It is budgeted in increments. We're currently in the design development phase. Hope to start construction in like February or March of 2026. So once we start the construction period, then all the big money needs to be there. So this would just about complete that total package. Yeah, so we have the same issues around permitting as well, that we're working ourselves through. But yeah, it's funded in increments. So this is an exception to that.
yeah, usually we award, yeah.
You got the one that doesn't match the rest.
Like right here, I wanna know, like, ask about this.
The rest of the
Appreciate the
projects-
question.
everything else that you see here, like if we just go up to project line 44, that's for construction, like Pat mentioned, of a treatment. I think he mentioned this one because it's kind of a bigger construction project that we have next year. We'll construct a treatment facility at Mililani Wells 2. That 10 million is anticipated to be total project cost. Cash flow wise, you're probably not going to spend $10 million upon initial award of that contract. But we do usually budget the total project cost, with the one project that you picked, Kaliloa, being the exception to that. But this is 10 million. That's how much this treatment facility should cost us. And the cash outflow of that will just be over the maybe 12 to 18-month construction schedule of getting that done.
Next year's budget, if you haven't spent all the 10, because it's like an 18-month job, what goes into next year's budget book? Just what's left over to spend?
So for fiscal year 27, when we bring you the 27 budget, we will, even if we have not yet awarded this Mililani project, because I could still award it, the money would still be there. I wouldn't re-budget it. Once we award the contract, we encumber the money and we hold all of it for until that project is done.
It stays sitting here on this line only and
Stays
doesn't.
sitting here.
before- Okay.
And then the way our capital improvement, so all of the projects that we bring you in this CIP, the capital improvement program, we can only work through these projects, right? If I wanted to come up with something completely new that wasn't contemplated here, that's next year's budget or an amendment.
Amendment, okay, okay. And then one other last, this is not so much a question, but I wonder if it's possible for the future, along with the when you were talking on the revenue side and its rate meter increases that we're seeing, I wonder if it's possible to look at both the dollar increase and like a total
Consumption.
consumption, just because then it's easier to see how much is rate related versus increase in actual delivery.
Sure. We can definitely work. I don't have consumption figures right now, but we will do this.
Yeah, just for something to think about. I know we increase rates, that's why, but so it's hard to tell if it's just because we're pumping more,
Mhm.
selling more, or just charging. But it's probably a little bit of both, and so it would be good to see.
So yeah, by when we come back for the public hearing, I will make sure we include a slide about consumption as it aligns with the dollars.
Be helpful. Thank you.
Members, any other questions?
I have a
John,
question.
go for it.
Ray, did you guys add in any contingency or assumption for possible tariff increases?
Thank you for asking. And before I even got to close this, so on the construction side, while I have this open, we budget the projects at what we believe they will cost, ignoring Kaliloa, but everything else. But we also, what we do is we put money aside in this, what we call construction cost index adjustment account. And in prior years, it is just a formula-based thing. It's 10% of all the construction that I intend to award in the FY26 or budget in the FY26 budget. Just take 10% of that and put it on the side. We increased that this year because we do think, at least for our construction, there will be some instability in prices. We don't know what we're going to see. 10% may not be enough just to get these projects awarded. So we increased that. In all of our major divisions that spend a lot of money on materials and supplies, specifically field operations, water system operations, IT, who is like buying a ton of like IT infrastructure, computer hardware kind of things. We increased all of their budgets. Just whatever they wanted, we increased it by 10%. That included on all of our vehicles. As well, like we have vehicles that are scheduled to be replaced for next year. We took that list, we also increased it by 10% because we don't know what's going to happen with the automotive prices. Plus, we're also putting a pause on some of those things that are listed, some of the light duty cars, and we're thinking that we'll just recycle from within our fleet. If any of us, and I thank the divisions for working with me on this, if any of the divisions had positions that were vacant, not yet filled, long time vacancies, or they're working through those, we asked them to just turn their small duty or their light cars back in so that I could redistribute them out without having to buy fleet of small vehicles. On the heavy equipment side, the larger equipment side, we did do that evaluation. Is now the right time to buy? Do we have to? But for the bigger equipment, sometimes it was because things were not serviceable, like this excavator. And then for safety, we're just going to move forward to buy those. We know they'll be more expensive, but on the small vehicles, like cars and trucks, we're trying to recycle. So it's like, turn in the keys if you don't need the car now. I'll give it to somebody else. Later, we can talk about buying you a replacement vehicle when the economy is better.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some places, and sorry, so it's kind of buried all around, but yeah, some of the big divisions, water system ops, field ops, IT. If you were to just zoom in on their equipment under 5,000 and equipment over, and their kind of like miscellaneous supplies, other parts, materials, you see that all of those are up a little.
I see. Okay. Yeah, it's good you guys are, it's so uncertain, but it's good that it's being at least trying to account for it. So I'm just curious because I know it's a real thing for even us. So I'm sure Ed, Gene, and everyone is aware of it too.
Is that your only question, John?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I just have a couple, and thanks for asking the tariff question. I had the same question marked. You know, if we recall, previous to the Red Hill spill, we were trying to quantify CIP against the metrics that you brought up today, but also just like the miles of pipe that were replaced, right? We were trying to get to 1% of miles replaced, and then we specifically deviated from that because the response to Red Hill took up so much time, effort, staff time, dollars, all the ways that you quantify, you know, resources moving. And we said, okay, well, we're going to put that on pause and we're going to come back to that. And so maybe this is a question for the members, as much as it is a question for staff, is like, you know, what are some of the practical tools that we can utilize to understand success when we're deploying kind of this kind of volume of dollars? And do we have to come back and think about then like all the other measures, like, you know, is there a Red Hill bucket? And as complicated as Red Hill is it like number of monitoring wells or progress in, you know, other water facilities and the like, and miles of pipe replaced so that we can be mindful of this duty that is like, you know, not getting the same phone call from constituents whose pipe broke out in front of their house again, because we're waiting to replace because of what you said, right? So this isn't a criticism, recognizing permitting takes a long time, recognizing, you know, that dollars are tight. Like, I guess the question is like, what are the measures of success that we can look at year over year to know that we're marching towards those longer goals that leave the Board of Water Supply in the hands of the next folks to come in good shape?
So I thank the board for helping or for funding our water master plan update. I know when we did it in 2016, huge effort to just get that, and that was supposed to be our long range planning. But from 2016 to last year, when we said we really should kick this off again, in that 10-year period, so much changed. I thought this might come up as a question. I thought it might be helpful to see what our CIP look like. These are those three categories, right? Research and development, renewal and replacement, and capacity expansion. So if you just look at the CIP in dollars, we're limited by what our rate revenues can bring in, what we can take out in loans, what we have the staff capacity to do, right? So the CIP in dollars can't change too much, but what it can do is change in its focus. So you see how little there was in research and development and even capacity expansion. And that is it's trending completely differently now. We were going to put all of our CIP dollars and our staff capacity before into renewal and replacement. Just fix what you got, invest in what you got, make it better, right? So it lasts longer. But now we're having to spend more money on research and development by looking for water. We weren't previously looking for water. We weren't previously doing exploratory wells. We weren't developing a monitoring well network to characterize what is in the aquifer. You know, we're just like gonna put all of our dollars and efforts into just what we had today. And then that brings that blue line up too. So if we can find the water, or if we can find where it's safe to build a new source, we're gonna invest a lot of money in expanding the system. So it's changing, and we know that has changed in the last, this is only 6 years. We could go back even further probably and make a chart like this to show that it really was focused exclusively on renewal and replacement, and then we're really changing what we're focusing on. And I think what metrics will drive and how we will track this is, thank you for funding our water master plan update. It might feel like a little early to have to do that huge effort again, but I think a lot changed. And not only did Red Hill happen, but we had a global pandemic. And since we came out of that too, I don't think there has been recovery on the supply and demand side of things too. So things are still more expensive. And the other thing I think that was contemplated, Pat, I was talking about this when we did the water master plan too, was that we would grow our staffing resources to address 21 miles of pipeline to get us there, to grow the CIP. And I thought pipeline miles would come up too. So the highest year we hit was fiscal year 21. And we did 9 miles of, we awarded contracts for 9 miles of pipeline. That fell off significantly though, and we're not able to do that slow climb up to 21. Fiscal year 26 includes only 2.8 miles of pipeline, though in dollars it's the same. We don't have the resources to award more dollar resources to award more pipeline projects. And I think more critically, we don't have the staff resources to take on, essentially, if we wanted to hit 28 miles or 21 miles of pipe, plus everything else that we're asking the staff to do for Red Hill and expanding, that's 10 times more pipeline jobs just roughly than we can take out now. And we definitely don't have the staff resources to that much more. So those are things that we need to study, we need to look at when we do our water master plan update, and we need metrics that are achievable with what resources we have and with what the world for us looks like today. So yeah, hopefully kicked off the water master plan. Barry guys did. We're gonna dig in. Oh, did you want to say?
Along those lines, we're going to take another look at the performance metrics. There are a lot, and update them, re-emphasize, reprioritize. I think Phil has been doing a real good job on the detecting the leaks and reducing the main breaks by proactively fixing a leak before it breaks. Those kinds of data could affect the overall, but we're going to take a comprehensive look at the performance metrics. That comes at the end of the master plan. It's like a 2-year process, but we're starting to talk about that now. So open to any kind of other budgetary metrics that you want to post. So
there's clearly more pressure on the demand side than there's ever been, primarily because of housing being such a focus, not just in Honolulu, but throughout the state. And all the people who get elected to office care about this stuff, and so, that pressure tends to come downhill, so. I don't remember even 10 years ago, the demand side of the equation being quite as such a driving force, but it truly is today. And so we have to be responsive to that.
Yeah. And I think that, to maybe just clarify that a little more, I think that there was always an assumption on Oahu that the water would be there and that the meters would be able to say yes in short order. And I think that that's still the case. And 20% of Honolulu's water supply being turned off just shortens the fuse that we have on some of that. And so it's important for us to think about, right, the cost structure of, is it filtration, or we're going to drill a new well? What are the cost implications over time? But also too, like the ability to actually get that water to the user and making sure that we're not just setting up for, main break after main break years from now. It's a long tail of what Red Hill did to this organization in terms of focus and how do we quantify that when we're talking about how we've had to retask large portions of this organization just to deal with, the short and long-term implications of Red Hill, right? So, I think large at-a-glance tools are important for us to know whether or not we're on track. That meet easier to meet the budgetary requests that come through to the board. Similarly to the, go ahead.
I would
Go ahead,
I
Brian.
would add as well, since we're talking about metrics and measures, and I'm not going to be on the board very much longer, but something to consider for the future is I noticed in the budget that the amount that we budgeted for personnel remained flat, from year over year. However, the amount we budgeted for overtime dramatically increased. So I think at some point, when we talk about, metrics, it's the people, it's the team. To the extent that you can quantify that and measure that, then I think that would lead to progress in all the other areas. Because if you don't have the team, you don't have the people, then you're going to end up spending more on overtime and not being able to accomplish and get to 21 miles per gallon, which I think is still a goal that we could hopefully strive for. But thanks.
Sorry.
And yeah, bumping up against that is just like the reality of like how many people we can hire, right? And that's something that we see state, county, across the board, and in terms of just how do we fill positions, right?
Yes, I think we contemplated always needing to increase our headcount to get us there, right? 741 positions was not going to get us to our goals of 21 miles. But what we struggle with today and struggled with over the last 10 years is that we still run 30 or more % vacant in these areas. So we can't even fill the 741 positions you gave us today. We're doing our best to try to get those filled. We be an attractive employer in any way that we can, promote. We all put bumper stickers on our cars to just let people know we're hiring. But yes, we contemplated needing more staff resources. What we could not do is create the more positions without filling our existing positions. And I think we didn't feel comfortable coming to the board to ask you for more positions when you can see our vacancy rates hover at 30 or more % vacant, right? So we need to work on that for sure. The reason in total salaries, you don't see a lot of change is the unions also, UPW and HGA are negotiating their next round of salary. We've got salary scheduled through fiscal year 25. I have not yet seen the results of the negotiations between employer and the unions for FY 26 and on. So when we see those, hopefully, we'll see, that's just existing staff, but that's why dollars, there's not a lot of change. 741 positions last year, 41 budgeted this year. And there's really no, at least at this point, that I can see finalized salary schedules for those unions to go up next year.
And if I could, I mean, just because we have so many of the division heads here and staff here today, like from us, myself and the rest of the board, like huge thanks. This organization is, you know, almost a century old. I would argue like this is the largest upending of service of the water supply in that 100 years, right? We have people having to say, okay, like how do you turn off all those wells and still supply service, right? You have like all these different ways in which the engineering staff have to retool what they're doing. They're not just replacing pipe anymore. They're looking at GACs. They're like, you know, looking at all of these things that need to be solutioned for that have not existed before at this rate of intensity. So that there's like, none of this is an inquiry as to like, are you guys doing your job? I think it's like huge thanks from our standpoint. And like, how do we make sure that the tools are in place to give you the flexibility to take a little longer in the permitting, which sometimes we don't have control over, or being able to, you know, make sure that the staff has the resources to the extent possible when we're delving into new technologies and new tools that never had to be even contemplated. The $5 million a year that you have for temporary drinking water, you know, PFAS, GACs. It's like, right, that never existed. You needed a GAC on a trailer to go and hook it up to one of these wells. So, you know, from our standpoint, it's like, how do we take something that has had a slow and steady approach and retool it to be as responsive as is needed to the environment at which we are needing to respond to and still meet our charter? Like, it's no easy task. And so, you know, I think we'll start with thank you and keep moving from there. I just have one more. That's more just like a, you know, in the uncertain times, both on the policy side, on the federal side, as well as just like what the financial environment is doing. If there's, you know, any large movement with SRF or WIFIA, like if those programs go away, like, or if there's, if the interest rates are going to change in bonds dramatically that you folks see, I think it's important for us to know that, because at the end of the day, it's just going to ripple through the budget. And I hope that we can use some of the federal resources that we have, Dennis folks, to be able to see as far as we can around the corner, given the uncertainty that we're facing right now. More of a comment than anything.
Yeah, I think Leanne guys do a great job of staying in touch with the DOH State Revolving Fund loan people as we can. We meet with them constantly. We try to stay in touch with them, and Leanne guys are also doing all of the heavy lifting on getting a loan from the EPA with the WIFIA. They, at least these two loan programs, right now, and I don't know, I don't really want to speak for them, but they seem confident in their ability to loan. It's not that they're giving away very much for free. It's it comes back, right? So they loan and they're doing it at low interest rates, but they're not grant programs. While sometimes they can give slight loan forgiveness or in there, but they're not grant programs, none with like a lot of discretionary powers. So they seem a little bit more stable. We are, every grant opportunity that comes up, we look into it. I talk to, and it, like, all credit to the divisions and the staff, but we talk to the staff about it. And if there's a project that we think we can fit in, we try. And we put it in until someone tells us, oh, I'm sorry, this grant program is no longer. So we had a couple of those happen to us recently, but we'll just try while it's there. And yeah, hopefully, hopefully we can weather this federal kind of financial instability.
Was there any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Great, thank you. Thanks for all the staff being here. For any other questions, Pat, thank you. That brings us to the end of our budget workshop. We have a few items to discuss in executive session. So for those of you who are in executive session, hang out. For the rest of you, we'll have you waiting in the lobby. And may I please have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Thank you, Ed. It's been moved by Lance and seconded by Ed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nay? Hearing none, we are now moving to executive session. Thanks everyone for joining us in executive session. We have one motion to vote on here in regular session. Let me read the motion. It is to authorize the Board of Water Supply via its manager and chief engineer working with Corporation Counsel to resolve claims for temporary hazard pay as described in the letter. Any discussion? Can I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved.
It's been moved by Ed. I hear a second.
Second.
Okay.
Thought I'd let somebody else try.
Okay, no, I'll take Brian. Brian seconded it. It's been moved by Ed and seconded by Brian. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Jonathan Kaneshiro,
Aye.
Member Brian Antaya.
Aye.
Board Member Lance Boyle,
Aye.
Board Member Edwin Sniffen,
Aye.
Board Member Gino Pano,
Aye.
and Chair Nalini Anthony,
Aye.
with 6 ayes.
Okay, awesome. Please note for the record. That brings us to the end of our regular board agenda today, plus the executive session. If there's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Thank you.
moved.
It's been moved by Lance. It's been seconded by Gene. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.